Hi there. Welcome to another exciting Kubernetes lesson. Prepare to embark on a thrilling journey through the captivating realm of Kubernetes PVs, PVCs, and secrets, where data storage and security converge in the boundless possibilities of the cloud. In this lesson, we will unravel the secrets behind persistent volumes, PVs, persistent volume claims, PVCs, and secrets. PVs provide a persistent, independent storage solution. PVCs act as the bridge between PVs and application pods, enabling dynamic provisioning, and secrets safeguard sensitive information such as API keys, passwords, and certificates. Join us on this enchanting adventure as our Kubernetes expert Nico, with his charming Dodecanese Italian accent and fluent Queen's English, unveils the hidden wonders of PVs, PVCs, and secrets. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Over to you, Nico. Take it away.
In this lesson, I am going to show you how I used a manifest to persist data into the file system of a server. Persisting data in Kubernetes. The common problems with persisting data into the Kubernetes includes Kubernetes by default does not give you storage. Data loss due to pod restarts and failures. I will be demonstrating this. It is difficult to manage and to scale storage resources. Security concerns around storing sensitive information. I will also be demonstrating that. Compatibility issues with different storage providers, difficulty configuring access modes and storage classes. Another problem we have is access is needed to a directory. You may have an application that needs to access a directory or a file on the host file system that is not part of the container image. This is exactly what I need to do in order to be able to have a MySQL database running in my Kubernetes cluster. Now let's have a look at that. Sometimes we need to show what not to do in order to reinforce a concept. In this case, I will be creating a manifest with serious flaws. Firstly, I am going to expose the database root password in my manifest. And secondly, I'm not going to provide a storage mechanism. I'm not going to use a persistent volume and a persistent volume claim. So there'll be no storage mechanism. So after the pods are generated and when they are stopped and started again, whatever data you had in the MySQL database is going to be lost. Let's start. Create this manifest. Use this command here. All you need to be able to do this exercise is found on my blog page. I will publish a link to this page below. Have a look below and find it. Let's start by creating the bad manifest. So copy this command as it is in my blog, paste it into the terminal. I need to assume that you have connected to the master node server where you can run kube control commands. Now let us create this manifest. And you can see there's the manifest already created in my editor. In your case, you copy this content, paste it into here. Then you say Control S to save and Control X to exit. One thing I find very important is the use of namespaces. I always test my Kubernetes manifests inside a namespace. You may ask, what is a namespace? Think of it like a virtual folder, or imagine it to be like a magic bag. And all the Kubernetes objects that I'm going to create are going to sit inside this magic bag. That is my namespace. So copy this command, paste it into the terminal, run it, and we have now created Bad Nico. That's my namespace. I'm a bad Italian. Next, we want to apply the Kubernetes manifest. This is the command you must use. Copy it. I'll explain it in a minute. So with kubectl apply, this tells Kubernetes that we are applying a file. This is the name of the file, and it is my Kubernetes manifest. Remember, a Kubernetes YAML file is referred to as a manifest. And then this part here is telling it, create this object and put it inside my bag. My bag is called Bad Nico. In other words, my namespace. And we run this command, and we'll see three things have happened. I've created a deployment, I've created a service, and I've created the ingress. This means that I can access this database outside the Kubernetes cluster. I want to just point out two things. If you look at this manifest, here is root password, and here is the root password as a plain text. This is a serious security violation, especially providing the access to the root password of a database inside a manifest. Never do this. And the other thing, if you look at this manifest, there will be no storage mechanism. I haven't provided a persistent volume known as a PV and a persistent volume claim known as a PVC. So there is no mechanism to save my data. And we are now going to prove that. Since I've deployed it, I want to see what I have. We run this command now, kubectl get pods. I'll explain the syntax in a second. Get pods -0 tells it that I want to have a wide display. In other words, I want to have the maximum amount of details in my terminal. And then this part here, we created a namespace. Always run your commands inside the namespace. This command tells Kubernetes that you create the object inside my Bad Nico namespace. That is my pod. I have one pod, it's running. This is my master node. Now we want to run a command to get the root password. I'm going to copy this command as it is into a text editor. Now copy the name of the pod, and in the text editor replace these tags with the pod name. So that is my command, and for the next command I will also want to use the pod name just to save me time. So with that, I'm going to copy this command now, paste it into my terminal. This should bring up a terminal inside my pod. I'm now inside the pod, and I can now run this command to get the root password. Remember that this you can only do inside your cluster. There is my root password, and if we look in the manifest, I pointed it out earlier, this is the root password there. This is very bad. Now what I want to do is I want to connect to the database. So copy this command. And before you can connect to the database, we need to first get out of here. So say exit. And paste that command in your text editor. And I've already done that here. You see, I've replaced the tags with my pod name. Now take this command, copy it, and paste it into the terminal. I'm now connected to my database, to my MySQL database, and I want to list the databases. The command is show databases semicolon. Copy this command. Show databases semicolon. And now we can see that we have 5 databases. I'm going to create a database called Bad Nico. And if I say show databases, I now have Bad Nico. I now exit from the MySQL, exit. And now what I want to do is I want to simulate that the pod shut down and then a new pod started. So I'm going to use this command, copy this, paste it into the terminal, and let's have a look what we got here. Kubernetes deploy. So it's going to increase or decrease the number of replicas. In this case, it's going to reduce the replicas to 0. And this is for all pods. I could have specified the specific pod, but this is good enough for this demonstration. And there's the namespace, always a namespace. So let's run this command. And now if I do the kube get all command, we should see that I've now lost my pod. Well, let's say get all. Kube get all -o wide. And you can see now I have a service, I have a deployment, but I don't have a pod. I have a replica set, but I don't have a pod. So let us now go and run the next command. Kube scale, this command here is going to give me back a pod. Paste it in the terminal and let's look what we got. Kube scale deploy -- replicas equals 1. I should now have a pod after running this. And there's my pod. I'm just going to run the original command get pod. You can say get pod or get pods. Both give you the same result. So let's copy this. Go back here and change the pod name so that we can connect to the database. So if you go now and you look here, I give you the command again. So this has now got the new pod name. We copy this command, paste it in the terminal. Now we need to do the same. Show databases. So we paste that command in, we run it, and Bad Nico is gone. There we had Bad Nico, and now it's gone. So you can see this is a serious, major issue. You've got no way to persist your data. This is definitely what you shouldn't do, but at least now you can appreciate the problem. Now we are going to look at the solution to that. But before we do that, we need to clean up. So let's exit out of our database. Let us do the cleanup. You run this command to delete the namespace. Paste it in the terminal. It's kube delete namespace Bad Nico. That's my namespace. and the bad Italian has been deleted. So that is the reason why I always work with namespaces, especially when I'm testing manifests or even when I am testing Helm charts. I always deploy inside namespaces. Let's clear the screen. We are now going to use a persistent volume and a persistent volume claim so that we are able to persist the data of the MySQL database into the file system of our server. Inside the var folder, I created a data folder. Inside the data folder, I created this MySQL folder. And I've chosen this to be the place where I persist my data. I have this MySQL database running for the last 2 weeks. I switch the server off when I'm not using it to conserve energy. In your case, if this is the first time you are using this, you will create the folder and that's fine. But if you want to reuse it, you will then delete the folder and then create the folder again. Copy this command to create the manifest. And let's clear this screen. I've already created my manifest. As I said, this MySQL server has been running for a while. But in your case, then copy the manifest, paste it into here, and then you say Control S, Control X, and that saves it. And now if you look here, I have a persistent volume claim, and I've specified that folder that I showed you. So I'm already running this database in that folder. You saw my MySQL files in there. Like with the previous lesson, you always want to test inside a namespace, so you create the namespace. I don't want to damage my installation, so I'm not going to run this command, but you would, and then you would apply the manifest. Paste that in the terminal. Likewise, I'm not going to run this command. I don't want to damage my installation. And now we are ready. So now we can say kube control get all wide. And we see that we have a pod, we have a service, and we have a deployment. We now want to connect to the database, so copy this command. Paste it into a text editor. Then we say get pods, kube control get pods. We've now replaced the pod name in the command. We can now run this command. And now I want to show the databases. Show databases. And we see there's a Nico database, which is what I was working with. I'm now going to create a new database and I'm going to call it Good Nico. And if we go to show databases, we see there's Good Nico. Like with the previous, we want to scale up and scale down. So copy the scale down command, this one here. Now that we've copied the scale, we need to exit from here, exit, and paste the scale command. Kube control scale deploy. The namespace -- replicas equals 0, so we should have no pods. And it has been scaled. And if I clear the screen and run the kube control get all, I should see that I have a service, I have a deployment, but I don't have a pod. Now we want to copy the scale up command. That's the next one here. Copy. I've now scaled up. So if I run the kube control get all, I now have a pod. Now we want to run the get pod command. Copy the pod name. Let's go and update it in our text editor. Now let's see what databases we have, if it's saved them. So databases, semicolon, and there's Kubernetes, we have it. I'm now going to drop that database as I don't use this database. So if we look here now, show databases, I have what I want. This is a good sign. It shows me that my manifest has now persisted to the file system of the server, the database. I created a new database and it was able to save it. I was able to scale down my pods and scale them back up, and I found the database was still there. The Nico database was there and the good Nico database was there. And now I need to exit and do the cleanup. I will not do the cleanup on my server because I don't want to lose my database. You would then run this command, kube control delete namespace. Copy, paste it into the terminal. But I'm not going to run it. I don't want to lose my data. So far, I used the persistent volume and persistent volume claim to be able to persist my data to the file system of the server. However, we need one more thing, and that's a secret. This manifest here will allow you to create a secret. However, I have used plain text for the root password. What you would do is you would base 64 encode that password and then replace the key with that password in there. It's as simple as that. After you've done that, you will then apply this manifest. And with that, Josh, back to you.
Thank you all for joining us on this fascinating journey through Kubernetes PVs, PVCs, and secrets. We've explored the power of persistent storage, dynamic provisioning, and the importance of safeguarding sensitive information. We hope you found this lesson insightful and engaging. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to show your support by subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking the like button below. By becoming a patron of this channel, you can further contribute to the creation of more valuable content like this. Stay tuned for future lessons and exciting adventures in the world of Kubernetes. Thank you once again, and happy exploring Kubernetes.